Hi, welcome to Knitted Voices, the place where you'll be hearing conversations with me and the beautiful women in my life as they share life lessons and wisdoms that they've learned throughout their lifetime. This is a conversation with me and my Grandma Gina. After spending about a year and a half living with her, I knew that I needed to sit down and record a conversation because there were so many things that we discussed in that year and a half that made my life so much better. And I knew that I wanted to record it so that I could make someone else's just a little bit better, if at all possible. I went through one of the most difficult moments in my life, and I no longer wanted to live on my own. And so I reached out to her and asked if we could live together for a short period of time. I asked for 6 months, actually, and she said, come on over. And so during that period, I never had to wash dishes, which is probably one of the greatest things ever. But also, too, I learned a lot of life lessons from a woman, and she really just changed my life. And so I hope you learned something from this conversation, because I'm forever grateful for her. Here's my Grandma Gina. Enjoy. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
Okay, so first off, I'm going to have you introduce yourself to everyone. Tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I am Regina Caldwell. I am retired, and pretty much I just spend most of my days taking care of grandbabies.
No, the grandbabies, I know they're going to value the time that they get to spend with you. Because growing up, I definitely did. So it's nice to see the next generation of kids come in and still have that opportunity with you.
Right, that trend.
Yeah, if I had some, I would be bringing them over here too.
Gladly, gladly.
Okay, so starting out, I want you to walk us through each decade of your life. You can start however and wherever you would like. Tell us a little bit about what you learned in the process, or just the experiences that you were having, and then we'll dive deeper into one of them later.
Okay. Okay, let's start with age 20. At age 20, after I graduated, I decided I was ready to get married. And of course, I married Billy Swede. And we had a son. That marriage lasted probably about 7 years. After 7 years, it was time to move on to another relationship. So that was at age 20. By the time I turned 30, I was having child number 2. I found another man, my second son, and he was a Barlow. And that marriage lasted about 7 years. So I had 2 beautiful sons out of two marriages that they were just marriages. One was nice, the second one was beautiful, but sometimes you just grow apart. By the time I turned 40, I was going to marriage number 3. But at that age, I was done, finished, complete with having children. So the 2 boys was all I needed. And the third marriage lasted probably about almost 15 years. So I thought that was it, but didn't work out so well. So by the time I turned 50, it was time to just enjoy life. And I retired about 60. I think I was about 65, 64 when I retired. So after retirement, I have been just enjoying life.
It was almost like you spent 1 decade and experienced life with one person and had a child with him in your 20s, and then in your 30s you got to experience and grow and build another family.
Right.
And so one thing I've noticed that it's like a pattern that strings through all of them is family. Do you feel like family is a big part of who you are and it's really important to you?
Yes, family is number one in my life. There's always room for my boys, my grandbabies. I am just family oriented.
Family has grown pretty large just from you, because you have my dad and Dre, and then they both have 3 kids, so that's 6.
Right.
6 grandbabies, and then I don't know, none of us have kids yet, but
Not yet.
not yet, but maybe
But,
maybe my brother will give you another grandchild.
yes, I think I'm waiting on Janice first.
No, not happening. Oh, so that's the family. Now, out of all of those decades, which one taught you the most?
I think the first one at age 20, because I went through so much and I learned from jealousy and that type of relationship with a man that, love is not painful. It's something you're supposed to really endure, enjoy.
Mm.
So I think I learned more at age 20, and as I grew older and older, even though, at 30, of course, you're not ready to settle down, you still enjoying life at 30. But going through that first relationship, getting married so early, it taught me a lot about relationships in general.
So by the time you were going into your 30s, you feel like you had learned a lot about relationships within that 10-year span.
Yes, very much. And because it was pretty much a relationship. And when you go through it opens your eyes where even though, you go through a second marriage, but it's not an abusive marriage. It's just when you grow apart, sometimes we know when we grow apart, it's time to move on. So, and right today, we're the best of friends with the second marriage.
Yeah, and when you grow apart and you decide that you don't want to do it anymore, that's much healthier so you can keep the friendship as opposed to going through DV and dealing with someone who's shown hatred and called it love.
Exactly.
And then you're like, this is nothing I ever want to be a part of. So you can't help but try to separate yourself almost completely from that situation.
Right. And a lot of times, younger people, I don't know how to phrase it except when you're dealing with a young man and he's super, super jealous.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you try to talk to him or he promise you, things are not gonna get any better. It's just gonna get worse over time.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a red flag, like I was taught, anytime you feel like there's a red flag going up, pay attention to the flag.
Usually your gut is right, and then
Exactly.
we try to go against it and test it out, but that's the thing with the gut. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong,
Right,
and
right.
then sometimes it's right and we're wrong.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, I guess I probably should have listened to this, but you were trying. Likely, I think sometimes we don't follow our gut when we are trying to learn or
Hmm.
teach ourselves something, and so because we're trying to learn and grow, we test certain situations and like our abilities to see if we are capable of dealing with it or moving forward. And then we get caught in situations that are much more difficult to manage than
Yeah,
we
and to get
expected.
out of
And to get out is another thing.
them.
It's difficult to get away from a jealous man sometimes.
Very, very.
So, what didn't you learn in that first decade of your life that you learned maybe a little bit later in relation to it?
Uh, I did learn in my 30s, the second relationship, that I have to love myself. Whereas in my first relationship in my 20s, I didn't love myself because I didn't really feel like I knew what love was. But once you learn to love yourself, everything else just falls into perspective.
So, being that you had to learn to love yourself in your 30s, what was the experience like with your parents? Did you feel loved in your relationship with your father?
With my parents, I came from a blended family. And my father, he loved me unconditionally. So with him, it was his baby girl did no wrong. So it was, I mean, he loved me. He made sure he provided whatever I needed. Whereas with my stepmother, it was different because she was more concerned with her children. And, and so, and whenever I would ask her for money for school, she would give her children money, which is my sisters. They are stepsisters, but they were my sisters. But she would always tell me to go ask your dad. And of course, dad gave it to me with no problem, but it was just the fact that being around my father, he just raised me just almost the way he raised the boys. He's like, baby girl, you never know when you're going to be out on your own. You'll have a flat, or you need to check your oil, or cut the yard. So I want to make sure you know how to do all of those things where, if you're on your own, you can survive. You don't have to have a man. Granted, I wanted a good man, but I was prepared.
He prepared you for life, like to be able to survive on your own, and also if someone came around to help support you and carry you through life
Right.
with, you could.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
So
could pick
even
up where I can't, lift the heavy burden off, where I could.
and
Because I,
it's you want to have those skills to be able to survive on your own, because
exactly,
we have to rely on ourselves at the end of the day the most.
right.
So with your father, you said you were like his baby girl that couldn't do any wrong. What quality in him did you love the most?
First of all, we looked alike. So, but he was he was a caring person, a giving. He would give you the shirt off his back, and I think that just trickled down to me. So, when I have friends and my children, my grandbabies, whatever they need, if I got it, we all have it because we're going to share it.
That makes a lot of sense.
So,
That makes a lot of sense because you've always been our support system in the family. And so, if that's how you felt loved the most by your father, you would copy that pattern and
right,
be generous with your own family to show them that they love you. So, you being generous is how you show love.
right, right. And it's not always about uh, the money, but I wouldn't want my sons or my grandbabies to be struggling and I got an abundance of money. And that's why I say if I got money and they're broke, they need a car note or whatever here to be paid, I'm there. I will use my extra. And that's when it comes to giving the shirt off your back. But I'm gonna keep a little undershirt.
Right. You gotta put yourself first and take care of yourself first before
Exactly.
you can give out to other people.
Right, because I wouldn't want everybody struggling. As long as I see that they're trying, I don't mind helping.
Mhm. And then a lot of times too, what someone does and gives as their best is not always equal to another person. So
Right,
you giving as much as you give to us and support for us when we need it, for us, nothing could compare. And of course, there's other people who have billions of dollars who can give a whole house or a whole complex to
right,
somebody. And that's an extravagant gift, and they appreciate that. But either way, we understand and see that it's the best that you can do.
right.
And that is more than enough.
Then enough.
So, you being here right now and supporting me with this journey of video and women and sharing wisdoms with young girls and women out there, and even older women who are just looking for a change in their life. It's
Right,
like being able to provide that wisdom that I've gained from you for them. That's my way of giving vicariously through you. And I think that no one can tell it better than you.
great. True. That is exactly true.
So hopefully, I think a lot of people, and I think definitely a lot of young girls can learn a lot from you, because I have. And I love my life now because of the experiences and conversations that we've had that supported me along the way.
Yeah, and we are so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's see. Let's ask another question. Okay. Ooh, what about this one? What's your greatest triumph?
My greatest triumph is I began working for the government at age 17. And that was at the VA. And I stayed at that one particular job for 42 years. I loved it. I cried when it was retirement time because I really didn't want to retire because I had heard so many horror stories, but I wanted to retire because of the change. You know, how things change over the years. When I first started working there, we had a manual typewriter. And when we finally decided computers, I didn't want to learn how to work the computer. I wanted to continue typing on the typewriter. So I stayed at my job for 42 years when I retired. And my retirement, I was blessed to have a retirement that almost what a lot of people make going to work every day because I had stayed there so long and I was under the old system. So that was the greatest triumph to stay with the government for that number of years and love your job.
And then to grow as a person because of how they were forced to grow with technology. Like you couldn't work on a typewriter anymore, so you had to learn how to
I
use a
had to learn.
computer. How did that challenge feel once you finally got to the other side?
I was like, wow. Because I don't know if the young people know anything about a typewriter, but when you make a mistake, you got to pull out this white out and try to white it out. It was just, and now when you learn to use the computer, it's like, wow, I was just afraid for all the wrong reasons.
Mm, I think we all are a little afraid sometimes when we're forced to grow, and it's like, but I wasn't ready.
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. And life is like, well, I'm gonna pass you by then if you don't
Yeah.
hop on.
If you don't get on the bus, you're going to be left at the stop.
And that's part of what provided you with the lifestyle that you were able to have because you stuck with it and committed to it and kept taking lessons and learning and growing with them.
Right.
And they offered you a lot in return too. I
It,
know like retirement funds and things like that were a lot different then than they are now.
right.
So hearing about the packages and options y'all had was really amazing. But like you said, you gonna miss the train if we don't hop
We
on.
don't get it.
And so for our generations, we are required a little bit, like we're required to do a little bit more outside of work
Mm-hmm.
in order to prepare for our life. Years, 20 years down the
Right.
line,
Right.
we can't depend on the companies we work for as much. But some people do a really good job of finding their path with the 401k options and things like that.
Right.
But
See, and I wasn't fortunate to well, I could have vested in the full one, but I, I decided with my pay scale and, the income that I would have to take care of me, I didn't need to put my money into a 401. But it's nice if you can.
yeah, take what you can get
Yeah. And run with
and
it.
run with it. Absolutely. If you could speak to your 25-year-old self, what would you tell her?
My 25-year-old self, I would say, self, you did a great job. But at 25, you were in the streets quite a bit, just dancing. That's about it. I drink a little bit, but it was nothing. I never got into nothing other than just a drink. And I would say, Seth, you did a great job. Thanks to the good Lord and parents and the environment that I was in.
Oh. What do you love most about being a woman? Looking at your 25-year-old self. and then who you are today, when you look at both of those women, because they're totally different women.
Right. Right.
Same person on the inside, but even the inside has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you look at all types of women that you've been throughout your life at every stage, what do you love most about being a woman?
At 25, of course, you find yourself just enjoying life. I mean, I've had several friends at one time, so I found myself just out there enjoying life, trying to make up from what I went through earlier. The bad side back in those days. But now today, I mean, and even back at 25, just to be able to say, man, being a woman, we can have a baby. Man can't do it. So we started that generation. I love the fact that we can just have the babies. Of course, now the man he's got to put his part, but we have the final say. So we nourish the baby. We're gonna be there even if dad isn't. And then now, at my age now, it's like I have done my due diligence, and now it's time to just sit back and relax, because it's like you almost turn into a baby all over again the older you get.
Mm.
But life is beautiful, especially when you have family. And I do have a close knit family, very close.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on this interview, and answering these questions and sharing your story with the family, and maybe many others who will be able to benefit from it. Um, I can't wait to look on this years from now and just be so happy that I was able to see you smile and we were able to collect it and record it. Sorry, I'm getting
Thank you, your
emotional over here.
Gigi.
I love my Gigi.
Thank you.
But
Love you too, sweetie. Thank
uh,
you.
all right, well, let's end it here. I'm gonna give you a hug.
No, I love you.
I'm crying.